One of the tactics of totalitarians is to turn up the heat, to create chaos in the streets, and then to promote a candidate that will be the solution to the problems they caused in the first place. I think of when Hillary Clinton perhaps suggested this in the past.
Never waste a good crisis.
As violence erupts all over America in response to Donald Trump, conservatism writ large, and more importantly, I would say underneath it all, Christianity, it's important to ask the question, what is the right Christian response to increasing violence? How do we turn the other cheek without being a welcome mat? How can we make sure that injustice is met with justice so that it is not repeated? We'll talk about that and more today on Indie Thinker. Welcome to the show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. My name is Reed Huberman. Today on the show, I'm going to try to give you rational arguments for the Christian faith because I believe it is the cure for a declining Western civilization. I believe Western civilization was built on the ideas found in Scripture, and if we put those Jenga block pieces back in place, if that's possible, before this tower collapses, we might truly find the cure for Western culture. Now, before I do that, I want to make sure that you're aware of something. We are launching a brand new series that will take place on Easter called Salvation Stories. We're going to be tracking the salvation journeys, the spiritual journeys of high-profile people in the culture. The first person we're going to look at is Hulk Hogan, and he turns from hero to heel, back to hero again in this story, and I think you'll really love that. It'll be a great way for you to celebrate this coming Easter. So again, that's going to launch on Easter Sunday, and then we'll launch some further episodes looking at different characters, and I really think you'll like that. Also want to make sure that you know that today's show is sponsored by our friends over at Sweet and Savory. If you're looking to cook some of the great stuff that you see on Instagram, you don't just want a watering mouth, but you actually want to feed yourself with some of that great stuff, well, then you need to go check out our friends over at Sweet and Savory. They can offer you an online cooking experience or an in-person cooking experience that will teach you how to make some of the most amazing things. In order to see all that they have to offer, you need to go to sweetandsavoryclassroom.com, and when you check out, make sure to use the promo code IndieThinker for a discount on your order. Edmund Burke said the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke was a Christian, so I think it's important for us, especially as Christians who are moral agents in a culture that desperately needs us, to ask this question: what should we do to stop evil? Now, this comes within Jesus saying that we should love our enemies, that if somebody asks you to go with them 1 mile, go with them 2. If somebody asks for your cloak, give them your tunic also, and even controversial things like if somebody strikes you on one cheek, give them the other cheek. All of this has created a sense of pacifism in most Christians, where they do not believe that it is within the right of Christian scripture and Christian morality to retaliate when anybody comes to attack you. I'm going to show you why I think that that is a very flawed understanding of what Scripture says, and why pacifism is a recipe to proliferate evil and injustice, as Edmund Burke said. So we need to ask, what is the right Christian response to all of these things? Now, I want to show you a clip of a young girl named Savannah Craven who was just attacked when she was holding an interview, giving her pro-life views and speaking to somebody who is pro-choice. Now, I'm not going to show you the physical altercation here. I don't know the rules of YouTube, so I don't want to get this video banned. If you want to see the full altercation, just simply go anywhere online, on social media, whatever, and you can see that. But I won't show it here. I just want to show you what leads up to it, and then I want to show you kind of the aftermath of what happened to Savannah when this woman attacks her simply because she has pro-life views. Check it out.
We kill the kids in foster care. And
why not? Why not, if that's the case?
We should kill the kids in foster care that aren't wanted.
Who's going to take care of them? I need to know the percentage of people who take children from foster care and abuse them and them, who make them like personal slaves.
We should just kill them.
Statistics before you come to me talking about pro-life.
We should kill the victims of.
I think, what does this have to do with?
You just mentioned people molesting children. We should kill kids in foster care is what you said.
What I'm saying is in general, overall. If I don't want to have a baby, I should have the choice to.
Just don't have sex with then.
Even as teens, people explore. And it's like, as funny as you want to be, people should still have the choice. I think that you just don't understand the magnitude of having a child.
I'm not the one who admitted they would be okay with babies in foster care and children that have been abused.
That's not the point. What I'm saying.
That's really.
For those of you who are watching this is the aftermath, and you can see Savannah in the back of a cop car, presumably, with blood all over her face, and you can see the cut that's on her eye. Now, what you just saw is 100% a hate crime. Not only is this a violation of the constitutional right of free speech, somebody is hitting another person because they're exercising their First Amendment rights, but also it is clear the woman that would later be identified as Brianna Rivers punched Savannah in the face because she is a Christian with pro-life views. Now, the pro-life movement isn't necessarily Christian, but it is largely and predominantly Christian, and very few people mistake the fact that the vast majority of pro-lifers are Christians. So even leftists will make this argument. Well, we don't care about your religious views before we even say what our religion is when we say pro-life, right? Because they know that underpinning the argument for life is a moral, religious argument about human beings intrinsically valuable, made in the image of God. So all that to say, we need to understand this within its proper context. One, Brianna should be charged with a federal hate crime, but also we need to give a Christian response, therefore, since we know that this is an attack against Christianity. And the first thing I have to tell you is that we need to acknowledge something as Christians, that there is no more deadly, violent, and morally bankrupt position than, and I know what you think I'm going to say. You think I'm going to say atheism. While that may be true, most of their violence was done in the 20th century, where they perpetuated under the guise of Stalinism and Maoism, where they perpetuated more violence in that one century than all the other centuries combined. And atheism is at the root of all of that, with their purging of clergy and churches in their cultural revolutions. So no, it's not them, although their arguments are perfectly illogical and morally bereft. But it isn't them. It's obviously feminism. Feminism, which has been responsible for, by and large, the destruction of the nuclear family, the destruction of babies in the womb, and has taught women that they can do everything a man can do, which is perfectly ridiculous. Try peeing standing up sometime. And you men, try having a baby sometime. Not going to happen all that well. But it didn't go as far as to say a woman can do everything a man can do. It also went as far as to say that a woman can do anything she wants to do. She can even be a man. Not only she can do everything a man can do, but she can be a man if she wants to. This is where the transgender movement came from. Obviously, it came from second wave and third wave feminism. That ideology created the woman that Brianna J. Rivers is. It taught her that she can do whatever she wants to do and that she has every right to punch a Nazi in the face. So when you know that feminism has perpetuated this kind of idea in women, then you understand the feminism that says, my body, my choice, gives you the necessary epistemic standpoint to then be able to punch anybody that stands in your way, because obviously they want to hurt your body. They want you to actually give birth to that baby you created, and they have no right to do that. So this brings up the old saying of punch a Nazi in the face. So if you're a Nazi, you're a contemptible human being and not worthy of the same rights of other people. And this is exactly what Brianna believes because of years of training within feminism. Whether she would qualify herself as that or not, the culture has been doing that to women for a long time. And you can see this in Brianna's response to this altercation. Brianna said, "To Savannah, I sincerely apologize, but cannot sit around and allow you to continue pushing this one-sided narrative." So there you go, a 13, 14-year-old argument. And by that I mean like the age of the person. This is something a child would say. You're not allowed to sit around and say stuff without getting punched. This just shows you how weak and broken feminism actually is, because it cannot stand up against any kind of pushback, because it doesn't have the rhetorical value to do so. Again, all it shouts is my body, my choice in the face of anybody who opposes them. Because it is so weak, it has to rely upon violence in order to get its point across. So she'll go on and she'll say this: I understand hands being put on someone is never the answer, but throwing rocks and hiding hands is worse. Is it really? Is it really, just because somebody disagreed with you? She knows the truth and she needs to release the footage in its entirety. And I love this. This I hear so much that I have to say something about it. It is utterly stupid to suggest that she cleverly edited the video to hide the real reason you punched her for no reason. Anyway, Savannah is a professional antagonist, not a reporter, and the truth will be told. Now, she'll go on to say this: I need a platform to share my side of events. She has 7 million views, making me out to be a child-killing monster when she knows the truth. She railroaded me into all of this. She needs to realize the unedited She needs to release the unedited footage with her relentless antagonization on a subject that is very touchy. I will not be defamed by this woman's actions. Anyone who knows me knows how respectful I am. Yeah. That's what real respectful women do. They walk away after punching somebody, sucker punching somebody in the face, flipping off people and dancing. I don't even litter. There's no way you believe I'm punching people for disagreeing with my point of view. So as you can see, Brianna is arguing a permission structure here. She's arguing that the Christian beliefs of Savannah are so contemptible that they must be eradicated from public life. Is essentially what she's truly saying here. That what I did is perfectly called for in response to what you said, because what you said is so evil that it must be eradicated. Maybe if we soften the blow a little bit with this next video, we can ask this question too. What if there isn't necessarily an assault, but what if there is a kind of quasi-leftist assault, which amounts to basically being hit with a feather, and there's just property damage. So it seems a little bit more clear when Savannah's being punched in the face, she needs to do what she needs to do to defend herself as a Christian, and the permission structure that is created there is something that is problematic, and there must be a way for us to push against it to make sure that people like Brianna know that there will be consequences. Let's look at TPUSA now and a recent assault that took place there, and we'll get a little bit of a different flavor of how we can respond to this as Christians. Now I want to stop right there because you just saw an assault, if you can call it that. A very big, unwashed man palm punched, I guess, a woman in the back of the head, barely touched her, but that was his attempt to try to punch a woman in the back of the head. Now you should know, as you'll continue this video, you will see the cops coming up to this scene, which means they just saw this woman get assaulted and they did nothing. And again, assault is being very kind to these bunch of unwashed hoi polloi as they approach this TPUSA tent, and you'll see what they do here. Now you'll see Brandon Tatum there, and he's kind of defending and pushing that guy. I absolutely agree with what he does there. But you'll see this mob of leftists with their signs come over, grab the tent, tear it down, and then pull their stuff away. So they just conducted a bunch of property damage. And there's got to be at least about 30 of these people all dressed in black. Now, I wanted to juxtapose Savannah Craven's attack with what you just saw in this TPUSA attack, because Christians need to start thinking about self-defense in a more, I would say, nuanced fashion, just like the Bible teaches us to. So to claim that all acts of force should be met with radical forgiveness such that we are willing to die at the hands of our abusers or to take their just haphazard violence, that is not necessarily Christian. What I mean is that Christians, out of intellectual laziness, defer to very often puritanical pacifism. We think it's nobler to be attacked rather than to fight back. This is not always the case. So when Jesus told his disciples, if somebody slaps you on the cheek, turn to them the other also, what he was saying needs to be understood, not as passivity, but rather as proportional and resistant. So the first thing is that you need to understand Jesus' words as impudent resistance. In Jesus' time, your left hand was considered unclean and then therefore not used. So if somebody is striking you on the right cheek, that means that they would have to use the backhand of their right hand to hit you. So it is a sign of disrespect or contempt, not really an act intended to harm the individual. Jesus urges us not to fight back in that situation because personal insults is about pride and not self-defense. In the case of the TPUSA event, I think that's what we see. The individuals aren't harming you, they're harming your property. So it's not necessary to necessarily fight back physically. Besides, that may be what they want at the end of the day. But also make sure to note this second thing. Jesus' words need to be understood as proportional resistance. Jesus tells his disciples to turn the other cheek, but not to walk away. In other words, the lame attacks of a person who wants to slap you in the face, that won't hurt you, but it also doesn't mean that you should flee when they do it. This shows that Jesus isn't being weak, he's being proportional. And that means that if you stick around and things do get heated, you may have to defend yourself. Now, nowhere in the Bible does Jesus say if somebody stabs you in the arm, give them your other arm and then throw in your kids as an added benefit. Of course, that would be silly. You have an obligation to protect your kids. You're called to stand your ground and keep your head and use proportional force when necessary. That's what Jesus is trying to say there. Thus, in Savannah's case, when she's being attacked by a random stranger and punched in the face, she would absolutely be within her right to strike Brianna back in an attempt to defend herself, as long as her main goal is not simply revenge or to harm her assailant more because she had the audacity to hit her. As you can see, this balancing act is hard, but since when did Jesus call Christians to convenience and ease rather than to simple obedience, which, by the way, isn't always simple? Now, many will try to push back against this, and all I can say is, what happened to your pacifism? I know, bad joke, but seriously, I see the notions of the pacifist as a crutch in Christianity, a convenient way to excuse cowardice, but nowhere does Jesus condone the kind of pacifism that you often hear out of the mouth of Christians. I realize this is a sticky issue, but we shouldn't take the low road when bravery and courage are in such lack in society today. We should think about these things. By and large, the Christian consensus sounds nothing like the men who fought in the Revolutionary War or the guys we see in Braveheart. I know, historical fiction, but some of them are actual people, and Christians of the past did fight, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer. All three of these group of Christian men were Christian warriors, making the world a better place for Christ through the use of necessary force. That's why I saved this next clip for last. By now, you've heard of the tragic death of Austin Metcalf, the young Christian teenager and star athlete who had the audacity to put his hand on a stranger, a young black boy, and ask him to move because he was in the wrong tent at a track meet. Now, for Austin's trouble, he was later stabbed in the heart and then expired. Now, people all over the internet are praising the act of this assailant as the only right thing to do when a white man tells you to move seats. That's how broken our culture is today. But even Austin's dad, who is a Christian man, is confused about the right response in this situation. His words have been circling the internet, and I want you to hear them.
It's very unfortunate that this other child decided to make a bad choice that's going to affect him for the rest of his life. I have compassion for every human being. This is not, I want to make this very clear, this is not a race issue. This is not a black and white issue. I don't want someone stepping up on a soapbox trying to politicize this. I don't appreciate some of the remarks I've seen online that people say there was this fight and they don't know, they weren't there.
Now, the reason that response is so important is because there is a ditch on either side of this self-defense issue. If you were too pacifistic, you create a permission structure that allows more Austin Metcalfs to be created in the future. And if you are too violent, then all you're doing is continuing this perpetual cycle of violence. But there is a middle road, and I think Aquinas gives it to us. And he tells us a couple of things. He says that self-defense is permissible when it is done proportionally and when it is done to save your life. And it is done within the confines of justice. And that is the justice of like the law, but also the justice of God. When you are not intentionally trying to harm somebody, but you are simply trying to protect yourself, it is appropriate to desire to push back. Now, this does two things. Not only does it protect you, but it also loves the other person, because you don't want to continue to proliferate the kind of nonsense that created the attack in the first place. If Brianna had been pushed back against, I'm going to be careful with my wording here, then she might think twice the next time before she punches a girl in the face for absolutely no reason. What I'm trying to say is this, is that Aquinas says loving people is willing the good of the other. that means that you love them in a way that they may not always like, but it is for their good. As long as it is ordered toward their good, then that is the kind of love that we really need. And that means making sure that you don't just become a welcome mat to those who wish to do violence to you, because what that do is it doesn't love them. See, as well-meaning as I think Austin's dad is here, I think for him to say that this guy that killed his son is it's the worst mistake of his life. No, it wasn't a mistake. He killed that guy in cold blood, and the full weight of justice should be upon him because we care about this young man. Not simply because we want revenge, but because this young man needs to be taught a lesson that only a type of force will teach him. And that, in this case, is the force of the law. Now, maybe a good analogy of this would be, a while back you may remember that there was a female police officer that mistakenly went into the wrong apartment after her shift, and she shot a young black man. And she went to jail. At the hearing, the brother forgave the woman, and here's what that sounded like.
I forgive you, and I know if you go to God and ask Him, He will forgive you. I'm not gonna say I hope you rot and die just like my brother did, but I personally want the best for you. And I wasn't gonna ever say this in front of my family or anyone, but I don't even want you to go to jail. I want the best for you, because I know that's exactly what both of them would want you to do. And the best would be give your life to Christ. I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please?
Yes.
Now, the reason I bring this up is because this story is truly tragic. It's a mistake. The young man lost his life, and this woman did actually do something that is a huge mistake that she will regret for the rest of her life. But on the other hand, Austin's assailant did not make a mistake. He intentionally hurt somebody in cold blood, and to desire justice in this scenario is not bad. It is actually moral and good, because again, we want to create a permission structure that favors the right things and rewards the right things rather than rewards the wrong thing. All I'm saying is that permission structures in our culture today are all screwed up the more post-Christian we have become. So now, those who wish to do evil, they're the ones who we get cries for leniency for in this criminal justice system because of how unfair it is. And while the Christian wants to sit back and actually defend themselves, that permission structure isn't there because it's bad to be a Christian who wants to truly defend himself and to call for justice. And I'm saying we have to put a stop to that. What we have to do is we have to insist upon destroying the old pacifistic notions of our puritanical past, and we have to insist upon a right use of force from a Christian perspective so that we can stand for a just society. All right, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if this show was beneficial to you, and hopefully it was, then you will love becoming a member over at indiethinker.org/support. There, you can gain access to all sorts of member exclusives like ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, and so much more. Plus, you'll get to be one of the first people to see our upcoming new documentary called Salvation Stories, and you don't want to miss that. You can also check out our sponsors down below in the description of this podcast, but most importantly, go with God.